folks, I promised you a review of the new gloves I bought, the Hell Twin GoreTex gloves. So here it is. In the last review I talked about how I was preparing my bike for the winter, because I want to get out on some winter rides, and I was rather hoping that by now as well I'd have had my my new Halversons suit, but unfortunately I think it's got caught up in all the Christmas packaging coming over from Sweden, so I might have to wait a week or so to get that one out to you. But obviously as soon as I've got that, I'll put that on the airwaves for you. So yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about the gloves, but before I do that, I actually picked these up at Motorcycle Live 2018. So I went along last year, I went along this year. 20 quid. You know, it's a really good day out, to be honest. You get a chance to look at all the latest kit. So I was looking at the latest bikes, and the one that in particular took my eye was the Ducati Diavel, which seems an absolutely beautiful bike, and I think it's due for release in the UK spring next year actually. But 162 brake horsepower. It's known as a cruiser actually, but in a lot of ways it seems to outperform the Ducati Panigale. So I've got all the bells and whistles on it. So at some point in the future I might just have a sneaky test ride of one of those. And also you'll probably be aware that Dale's been trying to persuade me actually to look at the Ducati Monster as well. So I shall be taking a look at that. But yeah, it was just great to look at around the different bikes. I have, like every teenager back in the 1970s, I had a poster on my bedroom wall of the Norton Commando, so I had to look at that. And as well, I sort of came up in the era of the big sort of the Japanese sort of four-cylinder bikes, and there were bikes that when I was younger I could never afford, but now I'm getting to this stage, you know, maybe I can sort of slightly start to think about those. So I did take a look at the Kawasaki bike, and also the Honda CB1100 EX, which I've also sort of had a hankering for. So you never know, at some point in the future maybe I'll own 5 or 6 bikes, but we can all dream, can't we? But it was just a good day out as well, and while I was there as well, I wanted just do a little bit of extra sort of training on top of my IM training which I've been doing this year. So I managed to get out with these guys, and you can see me here in the middle. I'm the one at the back that's flying through the air there. So obviously it takes a little bit of skill to do this, but it's something I've just worked on the last couple of weekends, and you know, I just find that with a little bit of practice that you can do these things, and also just some of the slow riding skills, which some of you have been giving me a slightly hard time about. So I've been working on those as well. So here you see me sort of jumping off these large crates as well, and actually going up them as well, which I thought was quite a bit of a challenge. So that's just maybe something for you to think about working on in 2019 as you look at your skills. Okay, so anyway, so that was Motorcycle Live, and while I was there, my missus back to the bike very generously gave me a little bit of cash in my pocket and told me to go out and treat myself. So I did, and what I basically got was a pair of these Hell Twin GoreTex gloves. So these are my hands. I guess, you know, we all have a pair of these, don't we? And you know, they come in quite useful, don't they? But particularly on the bike, you know, things like close throttle control, using your brakes, using your clutch, switch gear, and obviously the steering as well, and also useful for scratching your nose. So we need to look after them. And in the summer I wear a pair of summer gloves which I've been wearing, and I've got to be honest, last year I wore them all through the winter as well. I just put the heated grips on. I suffered a little bit with a cold thumb, but to be honest I could get away with it. But you know, another year older, another year softer, and just sort of thinking about how I can make myself more comfortable. Really, there's no point being uncomfortable on a bike, is there? So I did a little bit of research, and essentially what I found was that you know, there are 2 reasons essentially that we need gloves on a motorbike. So one of those is basically in the winter is actually to protect ourselves from the elements, the cold and the wet. But obviously the other element, I guess, is in the event of a spill, we come off, and our hands are the first things to go down. So just looking at hypothermia first of all, I just thought I'd just sort of take a little bit of a look at that. And you can see on this chart here that you know, I mean, it's the kind of chart that, to be honest, you probably wouldn't even bother to look at unless you were a Himalayan mountaineer or something like that, and you look at the combined effects of cold and wind speed. Okay, so you know, so it's something that we you know, we need to take very, very seriously, don't we? On the RT, my hands are protected by fairing. I've also got heated grips as well, which makes a difference. But hypothermia is insidious. You know, it bites. I used to do a lot of fell walking in my younger days around the Lake District. We'd go up in the snow as well. And again, when you look at that, and when you look at the impact of cold, the first thing actually to be affected is your brain's ability to actually compute information. So you start to lose concentration. As Dale has been drilling into me this year, the bike demands 100% concentration, not 90%. I was reading an article by John Saunders, who was the UK Superbike champion. I chatted with him actually about a year ago when I was looking at Suzuki's. He was on the Suzuki cafe ride, not far from where I was, and he talks about when he just started riding actually as a young man. And he was just talking about this whole idea of 100% concentration. He was actually at this stage, he reckoned probably about 96% concentration or 98% concentration. But on a particular ride around a particular track, he was thinking actually he just allowed some other thoughts to come into his mind. Next thing he knew, he was off his bike. So if John Saunders needs to do it, then I need to do it as well. So concentration is affected. Dexterity, or this, the opposite of dexterity, I guess, is clumsiness. The ability to actually want to get a certain output out of your hands that you will need in a particular situation, that needs to be protected. Hypothermia can also affect reaction times as well, as we various scientific tests are being conducted when people go into these sort of cold chambers and they do various experiments. Reaction times certainly will suffer. The other one is maybe a little bit harder to measure, but it's this whole area around this sort of creeping apathy that comes over you, and this loss of judgment, loss of good judgment. So again, something else we need to think about. And just the final thing is what we call tactile sensitivity, the ability to actually feel things through the nerve ends on your fingers. And of course, as you get colder, if you are sort of sat in a very cold airstream for any sort of length of time, then what happens is your body starts to adjust. So it starts to withdraw the blood supply, starts to constrict the blood supply to your extremities, your feet, your hands and so forth. And to protect it for your vital organs and your brain. Okay, but it does affect the brain. Okay, and in my case, my brain needs all the help it can get. So the point is, in the winter, you need the best protection that you can possibly get from the cold. Now you also need the best protection you can possibly get from the wet as well. So with the advent of GoreTex has been around. I think it first entered mountaineering circles probably around about 25, 30 years ago, something like that. It first came on the scene. And now GoreTex is one of a number of these sort of porous membranes that allow moisture vapour to actually escape, but don't allow the actual water to actually come back the other way. So these held GoreTex gloves are actually clearly GoreTex. It's in the name, isn't it? So the final aspect of another couple of aspects we need to think about. So it's the ability to keep yourself warm, which is about insulation. It's windproofing as well, isn't it? So you need a windproofing strategy on a bike in the winter. But also you need the ability to keep dry, don't you? So essentially my requirement, and as you know, whenever I invest significant cash in something, I always look at what my requirement is. It's so easy to get bamboozled and beguiled and distracted by the features of various stuff that you want to buy, whether it's a hi-fi or a camera or a motorbike or some motorbike gear as we're talking about today. So my training in sort of aerospace and defence, the way I'm training people is you've really got to get the exam question right. What is it that you precisely need this kit to actually provide for you? Okay, so I think I've sort of identified there what my requirements are pretty plainly. So I cast around, as always, I always do my homework. But then I went to Motorcycle Live actually then with a very open mind and just chanced upon one of the sales outlet stands there. I can't remember exactly who I bought them from. I think someplace in Birmingham. I can't remember the name. I'll put it up if I can find it. But they were actually giving quite a good deal on these gloves. These gloves I think sell at Sports Bike Shop for £173. I think I got them for about 155, 157, something of that order. So it's the most I've ever paid for a pair of gloves. So Held. I'd heard nothing about this company called Held before I actually started to look at these gloves. They're a German company. They've been making gloves since 1946. I always think heritage of a business is actually quite important. But they focus solely on motorcycle gloves since 1970. I think they also sell other motorcycle gear, but motorcycling is essentially what they're all about. And they're marketed, even though it says actually on the glove it's a 4 Quattro Tempi 4-season glove. Actually, in the summer I reckon these are probably going to be too hot, and to be honest, in the summer I'd much rather wear my my sort of summer gloves anyway. So I'm going to use these as a sort of a 2.5, 3 season glove. These are essentially to get me through the cold part of the autumn, deep winter, and the cold part of the spring. And once things start warming up again, I'll be back in my summer gloves. So I'm probably going to be wearing these, I would think, probably 7 months out of the year, something like that. So they're CE certified, they're CE certified to the highest certification that you can get. Now, in terms of the actual features of the glove, okay, so they have a lot of different features, so let me take you through those. The first thing then is the ceramic reinforced heel protector, which is this thing here. Okay, when I say heel, I mean what I mean there is the heel of your hand or the ball of your thumb. Okay, and that's basically underlaid with something called a Scheller Ceraspace ceramic polymer matrix. It's got these ceramic particles which apparently are nearly as hard as diamonds, and they're basically attached in a 3-dimensional coating to the actual textile itself. And I've looked at the graphs on this. Actually, this performs under friction tests something in the order of 4 times better than just leather itself. So assuming you do come down and your hand is actually hitting the road surface like that, and talking to did a little bit of research. Talking to a number of sort of professionals in this area, and the first thing that actually goes down is your hand. Very often, it's just like a reflex, and it's there to protect you. And I remember years ago when I came off on my Honda CB250 many years ago, the first thing I put down was my hands, and my gloves actually protected me. So that's the purpose of that then. The other thing then that it's got actually is a goat skin leather palm. Okay, and goat skin, again, just a little bit of research on that. Apparently is more durable than cowhide leather. It's also more supple, it's softer due to its lanolin element. Okay, so it means obviously it's easier to wrap around the grip of a motorcycle. It's water resistant, which is quite interesting, and it tends to be thinner and lighter. Now other types of leather, for example cowhide leather, tends to be stiffer, tends to be thicker, so that's typically why your average motorcycle jacket is actually made out of cowhide leather. But in the case of gloves, goat leather is actually the best thing. The other thing these gloves come with is a 5-year guarantee, which you have to register for. But I mean, for me, for 5 years, that's a no-brainer. That essentially gives me 5 years guaranteed performance from my winter gloves. The outside of the hand here, which is quite vulnerable, has an extra layer of padding in there. Okay, so just to protect that sort of hard outside edge of the hand from actually getting broken. The left hand glove has the typical visor wiper. How useful these are, I'm not too sure, to be honest. I mean, if you really wanted something to actually wipe the visor clear, I would probably think about maybe wrapping a piece of chamois leather around that and stapling that in place, but it is there for actually what it's worth. The gloves have a sort of a stretch fabric panel on the back. Looks rather like neoprene, okay, but I don't think it actually is neoprene, but that's how it looks. And has the usual Velcro, I'll take that glove off, has the usual Velcro attachment, so you can actually do these up as tightly as you want or not, and then what they call a tunnel strap around the actual wrist itself. Okay, so, and again, that is snug enough to go under a jacket or over a jacket if you actually wanted to do that. Okay, so you'll notice as well we have actually these touchscreen panels on the fingertips of both the right and the left hand gloves. That's for using things, you know, on things like your sat nav or any sort of touch sensitive controls that might be on your bike. Now the clever thing about these gloves is actually hidden from the outside. It's actually on the inside, and if you notice here we have a sort of a flap which says dry GoreTex on one side, and this is why the gloves get their name as being twin gloves, because you've essentially got two gloves in one. So let's say it's a cold day, but not maybe maximum cold, and you on this particular day you'd like more of a sort of a feeling in your fingertips than, let's say, protection from the cold. So what you therefore do is you put the flap back and you push your hand in, and now your fingers are right up against the inside of the right up against or rather right up against the outside of the face there, which basically makes your hands close to the grip, which gives you a better grip. What it also does is actually increase the windproofing on the back of the glove, because now you've got 2 layers of insulation actually behind the fingers. The alternative is to pull this little flap forward, and if you notice there now, we're actually going into like the inside part of the glove. So now what we've got is actually is a warm thinsulate layer, not only on the back of the glove here, but also on the palm side of the glove here. So your hand is now completely shrouded by thinsulate. So of course the sacrifice there now is you get slightly less feel, but to be honest, not so much that you'd notice. And a little bit less, I guess, on the actual back side of the glove. But the idea that you can do that, I think, is a wonderful innovation, and it just basically means that you can sort of play around with the settings. Whichever side you put your hands on, the glove is still completely waterproof. I've noticed as well, just in terms of the sort of snugness of the fitting, that when it actually comes down to this strap here, you can have it sort of quite tight, you can have it a little bit looser, just to maybe, I prefer mine just slightly looser, just to improve the flexibility of my wrist, particularly on the throttle hand. And as I say, this Velcro strap here is just, you can see there on my wrist, it's actually nice and snug. That's certainly going to fit under the sleeve of a motorcycle jacket on a wet day, or maybe on a sort of a slightly warmer day you might want it on the outside, in which case that you can do that. So these gloves absolutely reek quality. I've got to say they're beautifully made, and you can see that you're going to get a lot of life out of them. There's a major sort of protection. I mean, this sort of thing to protect your knuckles on the back here, this shield is very, very solid. You look at these little plastic sort of lumps here. I don't know what the proper word is, but they're obviously going to protect your hand if you go down, and the other side of your hand is actually on the actual roadside. And just the whole thing, even just like where your thumb bends here, or where the actual thumb joins onto the main part of the hand there, it's just beautifully designed, I've got to say. So I'm really pleased with these. I'll obviously take them out for a ride at some stage, but I just thought I'd sort of show you the sort of in-house review first of all. But at some point I'm going to put the new City boots, the new suit on, and the new gloves, and we'll get out for a good long winter ride, and we'll actually see how the whole kit performs. But there they are, the Held GTX or GoreTex twin gloves. So you're probably going to pay about £160 for them, but you get the 5-year guarantee as well. So do shop around and see if you can find the best bargain for those. Again, let me know what your winter strategy is. I mean, I think most of you have sort of let me know on my winter strategy video on preparing the bike about how you prepare your bikes. Well, now the question is, how do you actually prepare yourself? Okay, so I'm curious about how you prepare yourself, gloves and jackets and trousers and so forth. How do you keep yourself warm? Do you actually go out for longer rides, or actually just shorter rides in the winter? So always good to hear from you. So there you go, the Held GTX gloves review, and thanks for tuning in.